Morning Exercises, August 14th. And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? 2 Samuel 9:7-8. David had inquired whether there was any left of the house of Saul, that he might show him kindness for Jonathan's sake. Upon which Ziba, an old retainer in Saul's family, said unto the king, Jonathan has yet a son, which is lame on his feet. This lameness was occasioned by an accident, in consequence of the battle of Gilboa, by which his grandfather and his father were both slain. The nurse, not only from the terror such an event naturally inspires, but also from knowing that Mephibosheth was now the heir apparent to the throne, and that the victors would eagerly seek to apprehend him, to secure and conceal her precious charge, took him up and fled, but fell and crippled him for life. To how many perils are children exposed in their rearing, and how thankful should we feel to the providence of God if we have escaped them. Yet, instead of pitying Mephibosheth, we ought rather to congratulate him on his affliction. In the earlier stages of society, corporeal accomplishments are such rated, and had not Mephibosheth been thus disfigured and dismembered, the adherents of Saul's house would probably, as he was the next heir, have proclaimed him, instead of his uncle, Ishbosheth, and then it most likely he would have been murdered as he was. Who knows what is good for a man in this vain life, and who knows what is evil? How often have we deprecated things for which we have afterwards been thankful? How much do we owe to the disappointments of life? What dangers have ill health or reduced substance prevented? Ye fearful saints, fresh courage take. The clouds ye so much dread are big with mercy and shall break in blessings on your head. And the king said, Where is he? And Ziba said, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar. Here probably resided in obscurity his mother's relations, and here he himself was forgotten, like a dead man out of mind. Machir, with whom he dwelt, seems to have been a noble, generous man, who took charge of Mephibosheth from pity for one born to honor, and the son of so excellent a father, and not from any disaffection to David. Yea, we afterwards find him equally kind to David, in furnishing him with every refreshment when he was driven in exile into his neighborhood by the rebellion of Absalom. And may not David's kindness to Mephibosheth at this time have induced Machir the more promptly and extensively to exert himself in favor of David in his subsequent distress? If so, it says, Give a portion to 7, and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth. The aid we impart today we may want tomorrow. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The king sent and fetched him, and observe his introduction at court. When he was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. David had done the very same to this cripple's father a few years before, bowing himself 3 times to the earth. What changes take place in the conditions of men? David had too reflective a mind to think of this. He probably never seen Mephibosheth before, though he was born about the time of his intimacy with his beloved father. The first thing I suppose he would look for in his features would be the image of Jonathan. David had too much sensibility not to be impressed with the affecting scene. Feeling is always brief its expression. He utters only a word, but the manner in which he pronounces it said everything. And David said, Mephibosheth. It was the language of surprise, tenderness, and endearment. Why was he afraid of David? It is not probable that he apprehended any danger from him, but he had been living in the country and in privacy from a child, and it is no unusual thing for a stranger to be intimidated at the presence of a very superior and extraordinary man. Madame de Stael, though accustomed to the highest society, and endued with such powers of address and conversation, says she was breathless in the company of the late Emperor of France, and could never rise above this prostration of mind. But David was a greater man, and as great a warrior considering the age in which he lived. Seeing the depression of his countenance and his tremor, David said to him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan's sake, and gave him the assurance of 2 things. First, upon the suppression of Ishbosheth's faction, Saul's estate had been confiscated to the crown, and this he promises to give him with all its future revenues. And secondly, he assigns him a residence in his palace and a constant access to himself. I will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And how did Mephibosheth receive these honors? He was not one of those who take every favor as a debt and imagine their friends are only doing their duty, and very imperfectly too, perhaps, in every kindness they show them. But he exclaims, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? A dog is fitter to be under the table than at the side of it, and a dead dog is fitter for the ditch than the palace. It was a strong proverbial expression used to signify how mean and base and unworthy and unqualified he deemed himself. But if he received these benefits from David with so much thankfulness and humility, how ought we to feel under those blessings which God bestows upon us? And here let me ask 3 questions. And first, not to dwell on the ordinary bounties of his providence. Has he not remembered us in our low estate? Has he not sought and saved our souls? Has he not restored our forfeited inheritance? Has he not given us a name and a place in his house, that we may eat and drink at his table in his kingdom? Secondly, and are not the blessings he has conferred upon us infinitely greater than those Mephibosheth received from David. It might seem an immense thing to a worldly mind to be fetched out of distant obscurity and enriched with a royal demesne and allowed to live at a splendid court. But Mephibosheth, perhaps, was not even so happy as before, and for whatever purposes he valued his elevation, he soon left it, and found that he had set his eyes on that which is not. But we are blessed with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Christ. Our dignities and enjoyments yield the most perfect satisfaction, and they will endure forever. Thirdly, and how much less reason had we to look for such favors from God than Mephibosheth had to expect such bestowments from David. He was David's fellow creature, and he had a claim founded in a community of nature. He was the son of an intimate friend, to whom he was under obligation. He was also a relation, being the child of his brother-in-law. Though a sufferer, he was innocent, and had always conducted himself properly towards David. But, Lord, what is man that thou art mindful of him, or the Son of man that thou visitest him? We were strangers, enemies by wicked works, unworthy of the least of all his mercies, deserving that his wrath should come upon us as the children of disobedience. What then ought to be our self-abasement, our gratitude? But where are they? Are they urging us to exclaim, "Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us. By thy grace we are what we are"? Are they inducing us to utter abundantly the memory of his great goodness and recommend him all the day long to others? Are they constraining us by his mercies to present our bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, which is our reasonable service?